Our first speaker, Ralph Reed, he's a building inspector for concrete and masonry, and he wants me to read this to you. My speech is entitled The Biography of Thomas Paine. His series of essays, Common Sense, sold over 100,000 copies the first 3 months of 1776. The second printing, over 250,000 copies the next 3 months. He is saying that it helps to know a little about the background of the author of Common Sense.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. Yes, of all of the American patriots, probably the one that had the strongest impact, or a very strong impact, on the Americans and the patriots was Thomas Paine. And that's because he wrote the series of essays, which is made into a book, called Common Sense. And it impacted the American people and their attitude toward Great Britain and, of course, the Revolution. So I thought it would be beneficial to all of you to know a little bit about the history, the biography of Thomas Paine. And so that's what I'm going to give you this evening. Thomas Paine was born in Thetford, England, in 1737, January 29th of 1737. His father was Joseph Paine, and his mother was Frances Paine. His father was a staymaker. And so I'm sure you'll ask right away, well, what is a staymaker? A staymaker was a person who made corsets and made them with leather or linen and reinforced with steel ribs or whalebone and tied together with ribbon, laced together with ribbon, so that a fashionable young lady in the 18th century in Britain could pull that together and appear to have a tight waist and an ample bosom. Yeah, that was a staymaker. And so that was the trade of Thomas Paine's father, Joseph Paine. He was a Quaker, and at that time the Quakers were kind of resented by the Anglicans. And being a staymaker made him in the lower class. Thomas Paine's mother, Frances, she was the daughter of a prominent lawyer in Thetford. So that put her in the upper middle class. So there was a bit of a dichotomy there. For the first several years of his life, in order for Thomas Paine to be able to go to school, Joseph Paine had to borrow money from his sister-in-law to put Thomas Paine from the first grade to about the 7th grade, from the age 6 to 13. So during those years, the school was handled that way. And after the age 13, he was an apprentice to his father to learn the art or the craft of staymaking. And the one thing about learning this craft is he came to hate it. That was part of the problem. Instead of falling in love with the craft, he came to hate it. And so at the age of 16, he ran off and joined the Buccaneers. And he signed on with a privateer ship called the Terrible, under the command of a Captain William Death. And this is real because I don't have enough imagination to make this stuff up. And fortunately, his father came looking for him and managed to persuade him to leave this occupation, the occupation of being a buccaneer, and to come back to staymaking, which he did. He was persuaded, because it was very soon after that the Terrible ran into a conflict with a French privateer, and in the battle, out of 175 people in the crew, 150 of them were killed, and that included the notorious Captain Death. So fortunately, Thomas Paine wasn't involved in that because he was back to his craft of staymaking. And so he stayed with this for a time, and eventually he did make a change of occupation. In 1862, he managed to become certified, to pass the test and get through the exam to become a excise tax collector. And so he went into a different career field. And as an excise tax collector, he had some conflicts through the years with that, and eventually he moved to Lewis, England, and collected taxes there. Well, he became, after a second failed marriage, he became well known for his drinking in the taverns and the coffee houses, but also he became a well-known wordsmith. He became very recognized for his ability with words. And so some of the other excise collectors persuaded him to put together a petition for the British Parliament and request an increase in pay for the excise tax collectors, which he did. And he took about a year going to and presenting his petition, lobbying to the British Parliament. And so, you know, it took a considerable time from his job, but he didn't have much success with this. As a matter of fact, not only did the British Parliament ignore his request, but they labeled his request subversive and just totally out of order. And so not only did they label it subversive, but they warned him that they were possibly going to arrest him for the time when he was supposed to be collecting excise tax, when he was lobbying the Parliament in England. So it was on April 8th of 1862 that he was fired from his job as an excise tax collector. And that was by the Board of Excise of England. And it was shortly after that that he went to the home of a scientist, an entrepreneur, and an American colonist by the name of Benjamin Franklin. And he met with him, and when he left his meeting, he carried a letter with him addressed to the son-in-law of Benjamin Franklin, requesting that he, Thomas Paine, be given the opportunity to show that he to have employment and show what he could do in America. And so in October of 1774, Thomas Paine sailed for America. Unfortunately, the trip was very difficult, and he was below deck most of the time, suffering not only from seasickness, but also possibly from typhoid fever. When he landed in America, it took a few months for him to actually recover from the journey. But in January of 1775, he met a person by the name of Robert Akins. And this fellow was a printer and an entrepreneur, and he had this special project in mind. He was going to print a new magazine, and it was to be called the Pennsylvanian. And he offered Thomas Paine the job of editor of his new magazine, which of course Thomas Paine accepted, and he did well writing these different articles for this new magazine. However, he was very cantankerous, and after a few months, by the fall, he had run into too many difficulties with the owner of the magazine, Robert Akins, and they had a parting of ways. Well, this left Thomas Paine in a position to devote all of his time to the subject that was on the minds of so many people at this time, and that was the conflicts with the British and the British government and the monarchy. So that's when Thomas Paine came out with his series of articles, and the series of articles was called The Common Sense, and they've been put into a book. This is the book. It's a fairly short book, and I bought it at Roman's bookstore in Pasadena for just $12. I think you can probably find it in any bookstore. And I see my time is running out, so I'm not going to have time to go into a lot of details about the book. But basically, what he did was he exposed the flaws of the British monarchy and the problems with that form of government and the British Constitution. He exposed that to the American people and the patriots. And so this is the story of Thomas Paine, and I'm going to give you just one quote from the book about one of the areas of his conflict with the British Parliament. He says, England is exceedingly complex, a nation that may suffer for years together without being able to discover in which part the fault lies. Some will say in one and some another, and every political position will advise a different medicine. So that'll give you just an idea of what the book is like. He basically attacks the entire system of the monarchy. And otherwise, I will leave it for you to read the book and find out the rest of the story.
Thank you, Rolf.